I can't stand the cold. My body aches. I woke up from the chills and intense pain in my joints. A stark white square room. Where am I? There's an IV tube extending from my arm. It looks like a hospital. Someone is looking down at me with concern. Catherine, are you okay? I found you collapsed at home, so I called an ambulance. When I squint, I can see that it's my mother. Hearing her voice, I feel relieved. Mom, thank you. You saved me. As I respond, my mother presses her fingers to the corners of her eyes. It seems I've worried her a lot. My 4-year-old daughter is tightly holding my hand. Poor thing. Her eyes are filled with tears. How did things come to this? I remember the hellish days. I'm Catherine, a 35-year-old stay-at-home mom. My husband Bob and I got married after dating at work. Initially, it was just the two of us living together. And a year later, our daughter Anna was born, and we were happy. But then, my mother-in-law fell ill and needed care, so we were asked to move in with Bob's family. My mother-in-law was kind, and I got along well with her. But with caregiving came the need to quit my job. As I hesitated, Bob pleaded with me, promising to help and involve his sister who lived alone in a nearby apartment. So I agreed, feeling it was impossible to abandon my mother-in-law. I quit my job to take care of her. I lent her my shoulder when she needed to go to the bathroom, walked slowly while supporting her body, and made porridge, soft-cooked dishes, and fruit juice for her when her appetite waned. I wiped her body with warm towels. To keep her spirits up, I carried Anna on my back and took my mother-in-law out for walks in her wheelchair, trying to make her life as comfortable as possible. It was hard to watch my mother-in-law's health deteriorate as she battled her illness. Bob, who had said he would help with caregiving, seemed to have no intention of doing so and left everything to me. His sister Rachel didn't even show her face. I felt deceived, but I had already quit my job, and I couldn't just leave my mother-in-law as she was. So I just endured the situation. Catherine, thank you. You're treating me better than my own daughter. I really appreciate it. My mother-in-law, a person of good character, repeatedly expressed her gratitude to me. About 6 months into this lifestyle, Rachel, who was working at a company, suddenly announced that she would move in with us. I'm worried about Mom, so I'll live here and take care of her too, she said. I thought it would be helpful if Rachel assisted, as I also had to care for young Anna. But that was naive of me. Mom, how are you feeling? Rachel would ask my mother-in-law, but she didn't actually help with her care. Preparing meals, doing laundry, cleaning, and even taking care of Rachel's share of the housework on top of my already busy schedule made my life even more hectic. Rachel didn't help with my mother-in-law's care, meal preparation, dishwashing, laundry, or cleaning. She seemed to think of me as nothing more than a convenient maid. And on top of that, she would criticize me, saying things like, Catherine, you need to give Mom more nutritious food. She won't get better eating soft food like this. My mother-in-law's body was weak, and she could only tolerate soft food. I wanted her to get some nutrition, so I served tenderly cooked meat and vegetables. Only those who take care of her would understand that. In my mind, I tell my sister-in-law Rachel to try making it herself just once. I held back from actually saying it because it would lead to a fight. That only made Rachel more arrogant. The child's crying is so annoying. I can't get a good night's sleep. Can't you make her stop? You're a failure as a mother. She complains to me every day. My daughter Anna has sensitive skin and is prone to rashes, so she sometimes cries at night due to the itchiness. I apply the medicine prescribed by the doctor, but it doesn't seem to work very well. Eventually, even my husband started saying, Aren't you going to prepare some snacks for my drinks? Rachel and I work outside, so you can relax at home. How about showing some gratitude? His sister Rachel is much younger, and he's always been indulgent with her. I thought he was a bit of a siscon, but Rachel doesn't contribute anything to the household expenses, living off of us for food and utilities. So his argument doesn't make sense. Rachel works as an employee, but brand name bags and clothes are delivered to her every day. I doubt she can afford all of that with her income alone, and I wonder how she's doing it. If she has that much money, I wish she would contribute to the food expenses. But I guess she's living with us to save on rent, utilities, and food costs. My husband talks big, but he only puts $500 into the household budget and uses the rest for his personal spending. My mother-in-law gives us $500 from her pension, so we manage somehow, but we have to be very frugal. When I tell my husband about the situation, "You're just bad at managing money. Don't nag me about it. If you don't like it, leave," he yells at me. Only my mother-in-law, who hears the terrible words my husband throws at me, defends me. "Catherine is taking care of me every day and being so kind. That's a terrible way to speak to her." But my husband, "The patient should just accept the care quietly. Don't butt into our marital issues," he replied. I thought about going back to my parents' house, but I couldn't leave my mother-in-law behind. I couldn't imagine my husband or Rachel providing any care. Also, my father passed away early, so I grew up in a single-parent household with my mother. I didn't want to disappoint my mother, who was happy about my marriage. 3 years after I started taking care of my mother-in-law, she passed away peacefully, leaving me with the words, "Thank you." In addition to mourning her loss, the verbal abuse from my husband and Rachel continued. The household budget was now just the $500 my husband provided. But when I asked him for more, "It's your poor money management," he would only yell. I had to use the money I saved when I was working to make up for the shortfall. I had set aside the money for Anna's future education. But looking back, I was barely holding myself together at the time. So when my husband and Rachel blamed me, I felt like I was in the wrong and became more submissive. My husband would say, "You're useless at everything." And Rachel would add, "That's right. You can't even do housework properly, which was your only redeeming quality. There's no point in you being alive." To that, all I could say was, "I'm sorry. I'll be more careful from now on." Only my 4-year-old Anna stood up for me. "Mommy isn't useless. Don't say such terrible things." She started standing in front of me, spreading her arms as if to protect me. I think I was living solely for Anna, trying to stay strong for her. But I lost my appetite and kept losing weight. One day, I felt sluggish, shivering, and woke up. Couldn't get up, but had to make breakfast. Took my temperature. 104 degrees Fahrenheit? No way, must be a mistake. Checked again. 104.8 degrees Fahrenheit. It was correct. I heard Bob yelling, "Are you still in bed? What about breakfast?" When I told him I had a fever, he said, "Don't use your fever as an excuse. Hurry up and make food," and dragged me out of bed by my hair. I could hear Rachel's footsteps approaching. "Hey, my blouse isn't ironed. What are you doing?" I desperately got up, made breakfast, and ironed the blouse. "Look at that miserable face so early in the morning." "Seriously, you're so useless." The two of them left for work, slamming the door behind them. "Mommy, are you okay?" Anna came to me, looking worried. "I'm fine, sweetie. You must be hungry, right?" I fed Anna some bread, took her to daycare, and came back home, collapsing on the sofa. I fell asleep right away. I woke up coughing violently. Before I knew it, it was evening. In a panic, I went to pick up Anna from daycare, and she was waiting there all alone. The teacher in charge said, "I was just about to call you since you were late. You don't look well. Are you okay?" But I couldn't afford to be pampered. I took Anna home and hurriedly prepared dinner. I couldn't go shopping, so I made do with what I had. When Bob and Rachel came home, they started yelling, "What is this disgusting-looking food? Is this what I get after working hard all day?" "It looks like pig slop. The mushy appearance is just like it." "I can't eat this." With that, Bob threw the food into the trash. "It's not fair. I wasn't feeling well, but I tried my best to make it." I snapped back, but it only made Bob angrier. He fetched a bucket of water and splashed it on me. "You said you have a fever, right? This should cool you down. Rachel, we don't have to eat this terrible food. Let's go out to eat." Hearing that, Rachel happily agreed. "Yay! We get to eat something delicious today." And the two of them left together. Anna, worried, brought me a towel. "Mommy, are you cold? Daddy is so mean." While saying that, she wiped my wet face with her tiny hands. "Thank you, Anna." And then, just like that, my consciousness began to fade. I can't stand the cold. My body hurts. I woke up shivering and in pain all over my body. A completely white square room? Where am I? There's an IV tube extending from my arm. It seems like a hospital. Someone is looking down at me with concern from above. "Catherine, are you okay? I found you collapsed at home and called an ambulance." Squinting, I realized it was my mother. Hearing her voice, I felt relieved. Mom, thank you. You saved me. As I replied, my mother pressed her fingers to the corner of her eyes. It seems I had caused her a lot of worry. My daughter Anna tightly grasped my hand. Her eyes were filled with tears. But Mom, why did you come home? You rarely come, right? When I asked, Anna called me. She was crying, saying, Grandma, help! Mom won't wake up, my mother said. So it was Anna who saved me. Thank you, Anna. You called Grandma all by yourself. That's great. As I praised her, Anna remembered what she practiced with Mom. I did great, didn't I? She seemed happy. We had practiced how to call Grandma in case of an emergency many times. We had set up speed dial, so it was easy to call, but I never thought it would save me. I'm a failure as a mother for making my 4-year-old worry. I must become stronger for her, I vowed in my heart. Still, why did you endure until you got pneumonia? You were soaking wet, too, my mother asked, and I decided to tell her everything. As I finished speaking, my mother's face trembled with anger. Her lips tightly pressed together. Catherine, don't give up. Let's think carefully about what to do next and make them realize. The next day, Bob barged into my hospital room. Hey, Catherine, what's the meaning of calling the company? Just because of a fever? I answered calmly. You left me drenched after pouring water on me when I had a fever of 104 degrees Fahrenheit, didn't you? I just reported that to the company. What? Are you out of your mind because of the fever? What's with the attitude? Bob's expression became even more menacing, but I won't back down. I'm fed up with you using me as a housekeeper and ignoring me even when I'm sick. As I retorted, Don't joke around. You think you can talk like that to your husband and get away with it? He seemed ready to grab me at any moment. You always talk to my precious daughter like that, don't you? My mother spoke up from behind. Ah, mother-in-law, you're here. No, it's just a regular marital quarrel. Bob hastily tried to cover up. Expecting her to live on $500 a month and do housework even when she has a fever. What a treatment for a wife who took care of your mother. My mother continued without backing down. At that moment, my sister-in-law burst into the room. Hey, stupid wife! You told our company I got pneumonia because of my abusive sister-in-law, didn't you? It was me who called. It's the truth, isn't it? My mother said. My sister-in-law began to scream with a red face. I had a wealthy colleague who might have proposed to me, but he turned me down for dating. What are you going to do about it? She said, unable to contain her anger. Well, you have a ton of overdue bills, don't you? Aren't you almost bankrupt? You may want to marry someone and saddle them with your debt, but that's not right, I replied, hitting a nerve as she glared at me. You better be prepared since it's your fault that Rachel and I were humiliated at work. I used to be intimidated by such remarks, but now I could calmly look at Bob and argue back. I intend to divorce you. I don't need to prepare for anything since we're cutting ties, I told him. Bob's face turned red, and his fists trembled with anger. Seeing his reaction, my mother sternly said, I'll take in my daughter and granddaughter. I'll demand proper compensation for the pain you've caused my daughter, as well as child support for Anna. I can't believe I didn't realize you're such a terrible man. You old hag. If you show weakness, you'll just take advantage of it. I'll make you suffer, Bob shouted, raising his fist to threaten my mother. At that moment, someone from behind said, That's quite an aggressive way to talk. Bob's face paled as he saw who it was. Mr. President, what brings you here? The one who appeared was the president of the company where Bob and I used to work. Actually, he was a close friend of my late father, and he reached out to me when my father passed away, helping me out in various ways since then. When I consulted him about Bob, he immediately stepped in. I heard everything you said to your wife and mother-in-law in the hallway. I'm disappointed in you. I'll reconsider how you're treated at the company from now on. You should be the one to prepare yourself. What? Bob dropped his shoulders and hung his head. After that, Bob and I divorced, and I was able to cut ties with my sister-in-law, who treated me like a maid. I was glad to receive a $30,000 settlement and a $100,000 lump sum child support payment. Bob had only given me a small amount of living expenses, so he had saved up some money, but now he had to give it all to me. 6 months later, Bob contacted me, asking to reconcile, but I firmly refused. According to Bob, Rachel had become bankrupt due to her extravagant shopping and was desperately repaying debts while working at night, having quit her job. Bob was transferred to a rural area, but his high pride couldn't accept it, and he quit the company. He is now struggling to make ends meet with multiple part-time jobs, and as neither Bob nor Rachel do any housework, their home has become cluttered and a garbage house, with complaints from the neighbors. It's not my problem that he wants me to come back and fix things. I am living peacefully and happily with my mother and Anna. The president of my former company, who had helped me, invited me to work there again, so I'm thinking of rejoining. From now on, I want to live my life firmly for Anna's sake.